they got their head handed to them. So this is a very difficult market. It's extremely violent. Yeah. And they're even talking about declaring martial law and stuff like that. I mean, over this virus, I've always believed that you need to know the signs of the times, because the times are changing, and you need to be alert to it. And you need to know where the puck is moving, as Wayne Gretzky said.
Dr. Mark Skousen, the man, the myth, the legend. Welcome back.
Am I that old that I have a myth and a legend?
No, but you're definitely one of the great legends of the capital markets, of the investing markets.
By the way, are you familiar with Fibonacci numbers?
Yes.
Yeah. So I ask my students, I say, so what is my next goal? If I was to reach my next Fibonacci number, what number would it be? And of course, the answer is supposed to be 89.
Oh, I thought it was 86. Oh, it's not 86. It's 89.
No, it's 89.
Okay.
It's 89, and I'm nowhere near 89. But one of my students said, "Is it 144?" Because that's the next Fibonacci number. So he thought I was 89 at least.
Well, I gotta tell you something. One of the things that you talk about is disruptive innovation. And there's a lot of things happening with medicine today where, you could be 144.
Well, nobody's really lived beyond 120. That seems to be kind of it's funny, everybody's living longer. There's no question about that. But still, that end time, you just can't break through that. It's kind of Abraham died at 120, and nobody seems to get over that. We don't get up to the Methuselah age of 900 years of age, which would be kind of fun to see if somebody could live that long.
Right. Or maybe not. Some people, maybe they're just, they're just made to be in a product of their time, of that era. That's it. They don't want to, but.
We have, at Freedom Fest, we have a speaker who comes every year talking about singularity, the Malthusian project of living forever. But I noted he's been speaking for like 10 straight years, and every year he says, well, within 10 years, we're going to be able to live forever because we're going to be able to replace all our organs, and we're going to know how to live eternally. It's like playing God. None of these guys believe in God, but they're trying to play God.
There's an irony there. And we're living in kind of an interesting time right now. I want to kind of get into that because the coronavirus situation, obviously. But Mark, the last time we had you on, and it's been way too long. I think the last time we had you on was December of 2018, right before the new year. And your interview, which is on our site, it's on wallstreetreporter.com. Anybody can access it. You had some extremely timely picks. You really nailed the market. A lot of people were at that time. At that time the markets looked pretty weak, and people were calling for a crash going into the next year, and you really nailed it. You nailed 2019. You had some huge winners. One of them, which is rocking right now, which is Teladoc.
Yeah.
I think it was 45 when you mentioned it. I think it's 176 recently.
Yeah. Teladoc is a great story because it's all about non-physical, reaching out to your doctor visually or virtually, a virtual doctor, and that represents modern times, what we're going through, for sure.
It's right on the money, and there's been a number of other huge winners there. Some of them have pulled back obviously with this recent crash, but there's some tremendous winners. So. Mark, now, is there any logical reason why anybody would not be a subscriber to your newsletter, to Forecasted Strategies?
Well, yes, if they die, they usually don't subscribe. But
but anybody between the age of, let's say, you have a lot of young kids who are trading now. I mean, they're on, Robinhood, the Robinhood app. So, so anybody under the age of death could be a subscriber. or should be.
Well, yeah, and I do have a lifetime subscription as well, and that's my life, not yours. But it is, it's interesting because there's so much free information on the internet these days. It's very difficult to make money as a subscriber. I thank the good Lord that I was able to start off in 1980 doing my own newsletter. So we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year of Forecasts and Strategies. And my newsletter is Forecasts and Strategies. So I focus on the forecast and then the strategy. And I'm more of a long-term investor. So the short-term traders, the high-frequency traders, they may enjoy. I do have trading services, but my newsletter itself is pretty conservative. I'm into dividend-paying stocks. I'm into growth stocks that are actually making money. Surprisingly, Teladoc has never made money. Did you know that? Even though the stock has tripled in value.
Yeah.
And that was one of my more speculative stocks, but I saw the future, and the future. This is the key point that I've always believed that you need to know the signs of the times, because the times are changing, and you need to be alert to it. You need to know where the puck is moving, as Wayne Gretzky said, not where it was in the past, but where it's going, where it's headed. And if you can predict that, and if you can invent that future, then you have a much better chance of making money. So I think my forecasting has been pretty good. In fact, in the January issue, listen to this. This is what I said. I said in January, the stock market, gold, and all look very strong, but there could be and probably will be a black swan event that will derail the greatest bull market in history. And we've actually seen that prediction. Now, to be honest with you, I muddled through like a lot of people. I tried to make some good picks. I did add gold to my position. We invested in the dollar and the treasuries. But as Dick Russell, the late great Dick Russell of Dow Theory Letters says, in a bear market, the winner is he who loses the least. And that's really true. I mean, even people who said they shorted the market and they made a ton of money, they also lost money in their real estate and other investments. I mean, nobody comes out lily white unscathed. That they made. They called it. They were short. Listen, just in the last 2 days with the stock market rallying sharply, I have my technical traders who were short the market heavy, big time. They got their head handed to them. So this is a very difficult market. It's extremely violent.
One of the reasons why I'm excited to speak to you is now you're actually you're a direct descendant of Benjamin Franklin, right?
This is true. Although he himself said that he that boasts of his ancestors does but advertise his own insignificance. So, but yes, you're right. You're the only. I am a direct descendant, 6th generation grandson of Benjamin Franklin.
And so you're actually the only descendant of Benjamin Franklin we have. Now, a lot of our audience, believe it or not, a lot of the audience doesn't know who Benjamin Franklin is. We have a lot of, the Europeans know, but a lot of the Americans may not. Like, some of the kids today, they don't really get good education. So,
well, they know what a $100 bill looks like, though.
That's the guy. So the guy in the $100 bill.
That's the guy.
that's your great grandfather. So now, what would Benjamin Franklin say if he were alive today, right now, with what's happening in the markets, with the coronavirus, everything that's happening? What would he make of the current situation?
Well, he was very much what we'd call a perma-bull. He was very optimistic. He went through, he had to suffer through war, depression, inflation, runaway inflation. His livelihood was threatened. His personal life was threatened. He lost his son, who became a Tory. So, I mean, there are a lot of things, personal difficulties that he went through, and yet he was able to, because he was well diversified. He had bank accounts in 3 different countries. He had income producing properties in Pennsylvania and others where people were paying him regular income. He had stock in the Bank of Pennsylvania. So he had and he had various sources of income. So he really was able to pull through the series of crises that he faced, and always had a sense of optimism that if you prepare properly, then you can get through anything. So he's definitely someone that we can look up to.
It's very interesting. I didn't know all those details, but so he was. I mean, I knew he was really a great businessman. He was kind of like the Warren Buffett almost of his era.
Well, you know, one of the things we want to
maybe a cross between Elon Musk and Warren Buffett, because he was, you know, into the electricity thing of the era.
You know, you have to. One thing, he never came close to bankruptcy, and Elon Musk has toyed with bankruptcy a number of times. So I think he's more on the Warren Buffett side than he would the Elon Musk side. But he was also an inventor. Remember, Ben Franklin was famous for his lightning rod and the Franklin stove. And he was a great, very successful printer. He was always staying ahead of his competition, always expanding, increasing, having franchises from all over the country. So he was definitely an entrepreneur, no question about that. But he was very skeptical of government, very critical of government. He said, a virtuous and industrious people may be cheaply governed. And so the question is, do we have cheap government today? And what does that say about us? And the other thing he said, another great quote, is the system of America is commerce with all and war with none. And I think that's a pretty profound statement as well. And I'll give you one other quote. No revenue is sufficient without economy. And the government could learn a lot from that, because they're constantly getting more revenue coming in, but they're spending it like water today. Huge deficits. And we put ourselves in a very vulnerable position as a result of that. This is why I'm very bullish on gold right now, because we're so inflationary right now. We're just running huge deficits, and we're running, quantitative easing. We're lowering interest rates to zero again. This is an ideal environment for gold and gold shares.
Okay, so let's get started with where, with the current situation. Well, first let's look at the big picture, the existential picture, the coronavirus situation. What's your take on this? How long is this going to last, before things get back to normal again?
So I think what we're doing is unprecedented, and I think it's a serious disease, but it's not that much worse than other major flus and viruses that we've had in the past. But we never shut down the economy. This is unprecedented. And it reminds me of the engineer philosophy. The engineers out there are saying, well, if we can do something, we have the technology, we need to save every life. We can't put a cost on, we have to save every life. Well, meanwhile, we shut down the economy, we destroy other people's lives. Do we count those, the people who are committing suicide because they've lost their job, they've lost their business that they spent? I mean, we're talking about Main Street Capital. Vince Foster, the CEO, spent his entire career creating a fantastic private equity firm. And in one swell swoop, he's struggling now. The stock is down 70%, making a comeback now. But we're putting ourselves in great danger of creating a Great Depression environment by shutting down the economy for several months, closing down Las Vegas, closing down transportation, closing down universities. I mean, why are we doing this? We've never done this before. Why is it? It's because of the new technology. The new technology, the technologists have taken over. It's kind of like when we went to the moon. Engineers said, yeah, we can go to the moon. And since we can do it, let's do it. Who cares how expensive it is? Who cares what the money could be used for? It's the engineering mentality rather than the economist who looks at the cost benefit. And so I think we've made a major blunder here, unprecedented. And what it means is that every time we have the flu, we're going to shut down the economy every year that we have a flu virus that comes around. I mean, I'm really concerned. And then we've loaded ourselves with all this debt in the meantime. So I'm normally a pretty optimistic guy. And yes, we'll get through this, but we may be in a period of stagnation while we constantly try to fight our way back. I mean, we are Americans. We want to win. American exceptionalism is what we have built our country on. We have the best performing stock market ever in the history of the world. But, I mean, even under Trump, are we really going to be able to return to the greatness that we had? I have some real doubts about that at this point. So I'm playing it pretty conservative. I'm invested in the market right now, but I'm taking a much bigger gold position than I have before because of I think we're headed for some troubled times here in the new 20s. In the new
is this going to be the roaring 20s?
Well, I thought it was the roaring 20s, but now I have my doubts. I think we have greater threats than we've had before. The technologies are there. There's some great things that are coming down the road, but we're saddling ourselves with this debt and regulation. I mean, after all, more and more, everything is either being prohibited or mandated. You follow me? So, yeah. So what we're seeing is a squeezing from both sides, the amount of freedom we have. And how can an economy really flourish when you're mandating and prohibiting things on both sides? We're being squeezed. You know, it's kind of like that. Remember the old science fiction, the old science movies where the walls were coming in on both sides.
Right, that's right. I'm concerned. I mean, this coronavirus thing really like amplifies it, like to a, you know, takes it to a whole new level, obviously. You know.
Yeah, and they're even talking about declaring martial law and stuff like that. I mean, over this virus that so it's killed 10,000 people. You know, the term grim is constantly being used. But when you compare it to people dying from tuberculosis, from driving car accidents, 50,000 people are killed every year on automobile accidents.
Yeah.
Are we going to close down all the highways? Well, apparently that's what we're doing.
Oh, it's crazy. Speaking of which, speaking of freedom, now you're one of the things that you're famous for is producing the Freedom Fest.
Yes.
Conference every year, and it's in Vegas.
Yes.
It's
closed down right now.
What's happening with this?
Yeah, so we're still planning to have our Freedom Fest. We may be the only libertarian free market investment conference going on. It's July 13th through the 16th. If people go to freedomfest.com, we have a great lineup of speakers and everything. Here's my idea all along is that we've really had to fight to maintain our degree of freedom in this country. It's a constant battle, and I felt like we were losing the battle. So why not get together all the freedom lovers, all the free market think tanks, all the freedom organizations, and, we're all busy. We all live busy lives. So let's all come together once a year to learn, to network, to socialize, to celebrate liberty and what's left of it. And it's been a big success. We have several thousand people who come to Vegas every year for an intellectual feast, philosophy, history, science and technology, film festival, healthy living, economics. We have an investment conference. I mean, it really is fun. I don't know if you've been before, but it's really an exciting event.
It's always been on my agenda, but it's one of these things which actually this year I'd like to make it. So now, who's the headliner this year? Who are some of the headline speakers?
Well, we have Dr. Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist, who's created quite a wave.
Oh, he's huge on YouTube.
You see 6 million hits for him.
Yeah.
He's a very controversial clinical psychologist who's written a book, 12 Rules for Life. Young people in particular are really attracted to him, and we have a lot of young people coming to meet him. But he'll be autographing books. He'll be speaking. We have Tom Woods of Tom Woods Show, the libertarian from the Mises Institute. We have Matt Ridley from the UK coming over. Steve Forbes is there every year. He's our ambassador to Freedom Fest. and is a big fan. And he's there all 3 days. And, you know, one of the keys is we do not have a green room. So all the speakers mingle like attendees, and they don't hide. You know how you go to so many conferences where the speaker's up there, you can see them, but you never get to meet them. And that's not going to be the case at our conference.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now, where is this going to be held?
So it's held at the Paris Resort in Las Vegas, and it's July 13th through the 16th. FreedomFest.com is our website, so that'll give you a list of all the speakers. But I mean, we have over 800 people who have signed up. Now, granted, that the numbers are growing very slowly right now. People are worried, and are you going to be able to do this conference? Because most conferences have been postponed or even canceled. But we think, listen, if we're not back in action by July, then we are facing a Great Depression. So we really need to get our back in and get going, or we're in big trouble for sure. So we think Freedom Fest will take place, and we're hoping people. I mean, now's the time to get tickets. The airlines are even offering, guarantees and refunds and so forth if you change. So why not take advantage of the really cheap fares?
Oh,
we still have our
early bird
special too. Huh?
There's no risk. You can book an airline ticket and you can cancel.
Right.
Okay. Now, so you're at the Paris Hotel now. You know, Vegas is essentially everything is closed. Have they given you any indication of when they're going to reopen for business?
Yes, they think that in late May or early June that they're going to be back offering various programs and shows and everything be back in action. You know, people may be wearing masks or, you know, who knows in terms of social accommodation. But, you know, almost all of these viruses, they come and go, and already the growth rate has dropped dramatically. And I think within a week, we'll probably see a sharp decline in cases, and we'll be able to get back into business. And that's the key point. So I think, look, if Vegas has to open pretty soon, they're losing these casinos are losing millions of dollars every day, and they're really hurting. And no government bailout is big enough to compensate the loss of business. You know, business just not working at all.
No, it's crazy. You know, what is it? Who said the business of America is business? I mean, we need to
Calvin Coolidge. That's right.
we need to get back. We need to get back to the American way. I mean, so speaking of which, let's talk about some of your how you're getting positioned. So you mentioned gold.
Right.
What's your do you have a price target for gold?
Yes, I think gold is going to go over $2,000 an ounce. It's currently at $1,600. It's going to go over $2,000 an ounce into next year. That's my prediction, just because of the amount of money that's out there and the low interest rates, and the deficits have to be financed. And business getting back is going to increase demand for gold and gold products. So you put all that together, and I think we're looking at a $2,000 price. Now, I'm not going outrageous like some people are talking about $5,000 gold and stuff like that. I mean, that's chaos. That's total end of the world scenarios, and I don't buy that. But $2,000 I think is a reasonable figure, and we reached $2,000 an ounce of gold in 2011. So I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. The mining stocks can be much more leveraged, though, and so you could probably double your money on some of these mining stocks.
Okay, are you recommending any of the miners right now?
Yep, absolutely. Newmont Mining is Franco-Nevada is a really good choice. Barrick Gold, I think, is an excellent one. So there are quite a few out there, and some people may want to jump into the juniors and stuff. I like Midas Gold, which is one that private equity funded. Midas Gold put in $34 million, so that's a penny stock. I mean, it's not a penny stock; it's $3 a share, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a stock like that go to $6 or $10 a share.
Okay. Now, Midas, are they a producer or an explorer right now?
Oh, well, they're an explorer.
They're an explorer.
Right.
Okay. But you're mostly
so they're not making very much money right now, but that could turn around very quickly as their gold mining projects expand.
Okay. And what about what's your outlook for the dollar right now?
For the dollar?
Yeah.
Oh, so I've been very bullish. We have the dollar in our portfolios. There's a dollar index ETF called UP. UUP is the symbol. That's been holding up pretty well, around $27 a share. With the world currency and with this coronavirus, there's been a huge liquidity crunch. And gold is, or not gold, but the dollar has been in demand. So this is kind of unusual to see both gold and the dollar rising together because they do tend to move in opposite directions. But the other currencies are so weak that the dollar has been strengthening against the yen and against the pound and against the euro. So we've been recommending that as kind of a defensive mechanism. Not that you can make a lot of money. We did make a lot of money on the call options a couple of weeks ago, but just in terms of the strength of the dollar, it has held up surprisingly well, and probably will continue to do so.
Is it because what is it? So what do they call it? The cleanest shirt in the laundry and a bunch of dirty shirts?
Right. I think that's a good comparison. So it's really been a savior for us in our portfolio because with all the other stocks taking a beating, the dollar bullish index has actually gone up slightly along with gold. Those are our two positions, the gold and the dollar, that has protected us. Plus, we've had a few stocks, like you mentioned, Teladoc and others that have done really well to provide us some way of profiting from a breakthrough in a vaccine or something, like Zoom Technologies. That's another one that we invested in. ZM is the symbol. That stock has done really well because everybody's using Zoom or Skype or whatever to, I teach at Chapman University online, and we have to use a variety of sources like Zoom, like Skype, like Panopto and Blackboard and stuff like that. So Skype, in this case, is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft is another one of our big stocks that we've done pretty well in, and they really haven't been hurt that much by the sell-off in the stock market.
So what other stocks do you like right now? Like, what do you think has the best, where do you see the most potential in, the next 12 months in 2020?
So we're very bullish on Microsoft and Apple. There's a really great ETF, XLK, that is a technology ETF that has really done well, and 43% of its position is in Microsoft and Apple. So they're kind of betting the farm on those two positions. And I do think they both, the charting looks very good on that. They didn't really drop as much as some of the other stocks. Our oil stocks were killed, and we were stopped out of Exxon and some of our other stocks. But energy is a really tough one right now. I'm not sure I really want to. I mean, it's a great speculator's game, but I don't know if there's a long-term positive story with oil and gas right now. So I kind of avoid the energy sector.
Okay, and I'm curious. When you say long-term, are you saying just in the next, 18 months, or do you think, the day of, oil is over?
There's so much, the demand has dropped off pretty sharply. That's temporary to some extent, but supplies have become so generous with fracking and Russia dumping their oil on the market, Saudi Arabia doing the same thing. They're in a contest to see who can produce the most oil. And then on top of it, you realize that these alternative energy sources are really are having a field day. Now, with the oil price so cheap, I'm not even bullish on solar and that sort of thing. I'm just avoiding the whole sector entirely at this point. So with excess supply and tepid demand, I just don't see a lot of work there. My basic philosophy goes to J. Paul Getty. He wrote a great book called How to Be Rich. And he has a great chapter on the stock market. And he says the key is this. You want to invest in companies where industry can't help but burgeon over time. And you want to buy stocks relatively inexpensively and then hold them long-term through thick and thin. So that has been my philosophy, and it's not working too well with oil and gas right now. So technology is definitely a better place to go. And if I can get some technology stocks where they're selling at reasonable prices, then I'm more interested in that kind of sector. And in terms of gold, I'm just in that for several years. I don't know how long I'll be in it. It just depends on how long it takes before interest rates go back up and make it more difficult to invest in gold and silver. So long term, I'm more into the technology plays like Microsoft and Apple and companies like that. That would be my choice these days.
Okay. And last time you spoke about disruptive innovation. Are there any stocks in the disruptive innovation space that you see as any bargains at this point, or are there going to be any bargains right now?
Well, a lot of them are bargains right now. You take your pick in terms of most of the technology. I like the ARK Innovation Fund Group. I don't know if you're familiar with ARK, A-R-K, Innovation,
you
and their ETFs.
You mentioned them last time we had you, and they had a big run. They got smacked obviously the last month. Yeah,
but now they're making a comeback. Of course, their biggest position is Tesla. They're taking a big risk with Tesla and their heavy debt. But they, between Ron Barron and the ARK Innovation Fund people, they're still feel that this whole electric car business, their Tesla is in the forefront of it and expanding in China and so forth, that they could continue to do really well. But yeah, I like 3D printing and any investments in the cloud that Microsoft is involved in NVIDIA and so forth. These are all great companies that I think have a great outlook. And I also think biotech, the whole pharmaceutical business is a great area that can help healthcare in general. I mean, Omega Healthcare is a real estate investment trust that is in nursing homes, and the nursing home business is going to be a booming business, right? So these are areas that I think will really do well over the long term, and those are the kind of areas that I focus on in forecasts and strategies.
Okay. So did you mention Twilio last time? I'm not sure. I think you mentioned Twilio last time we had you on.
Boy, I can't remember if it's not in the. It might have been one of my trading services.
Okay. I think it was. Maybe it was one of the associates in your group. It was one of the other newsletters in the Eagle family.
Now, by the way, I am recommending Twitter, which is close.
Close enough.
I think Twitter has developed into a great model, and they're making a lot of money now. I don't know if you've looked at
Twitter's making money.
Pardon?
Twitter is making money now.
Oh yeah, Twitter's been making money for 2 years now.
Interesting. I actually, it's funny. I tried to run an ad on Twitter, and their thing is it's not very user friendly, and I think they actually double charge me. I mean, they have some kinks in that system, but I don't. But as a stock, I mean, I would take a look at it. What do you think? So you like Twitter at these levels?
Yes, I think Twitter has a really good potential of rising pretty sharply. And Facebook has already had a big run. And, of course, the Facebook model is still very positive. LinkedIn as well. I mean, a lot of these social media developers, they're still very active. still growing. I mean, Netflix is another big winner and probably has a still greater potential, though it's facing much more competition from Disney. I actually think Disney is a really good play as well in terms of the entertainment area. As soon as they can open their parks again.
Yeah. It's now back to that reopening of America. You know, again, your conference is July. It was July 13th. It's scheduled to open. So, do you think, you know, what percentage of things will be back to normal? Let's call it. Let's say, you know, let's just as a baseline, we'll say January was a 10. We were at a 10, and now we're at a 2, maybe. Where will we be? Let's say by you know, let's say by the election. Let's say November. Where are we going to be? What level?
Well, we're certainly not going to be back to normal for quite some time, but I mean, by November, everything has to be open. They have to have all the sporting events that need to be open. We need to be able to socialize and sit next to each other and that sort of thing. If not, if we're at a level 6, where people are showing up, but they're sitting 2 seats down, and so your arena can fill. Instead of 30,000 people, you can only allow 10,000 people, and you get to play the sports, and the rest of the people are watching on TV. You know, that's not going to form the basis of a successful recovery. And frankly, it's going to jeopardize Donald Trump and the Republicans maintaining any kind of control on Capitol Hill. I think the Democrats could easily win the presidency as well as the Capitol Hill. The Senate is the really tough one for the Democrats to take over, but it's conceivable. And if that happens, then I'm really going to be buying a lot of gold, because the Democrats are going to be in charge of spending even more of our money that we don't have, and regulating and raising taxes on the rich and attacking capitalism and all of the problems that associated with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who no longer in the running, but they've affected the agenda that we're facing. So I'm somewhat optimistic, but I don't see us a total return to normalcy for another year at least.
Okay, really, that long? A year before?
The key is Las Vegas opening up, and if we can have our conference and people there. But, you know, so many organizations depend on donors who have been hammered by the stock market crash. They're not giving money anymore. All these organizations are hurting now that are defending liberty. And so you wonder how much, I mean, for example, there's a great movie coming out on Reagan. Are they going to be able to produce that film? We hear of people who aren't paying their mortgages. We've had people who want a refund from my newsletter because they're not getting the income in like they did before. And how long is that going to take? 3-4 months before people are back to work? And how many jobs are going to still be there next month? Some jobs, some businesses are going out of business. And I think it's going to take some time before we fully recover from this disaster. I don't know who made this decision of closing down all the businesses, but it's really been a disaster.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it was an engineering mindset. It's like an engineered disaster, basically.
It's the healthcare engineers that said we have the technology that we can save every person, but we have to sequester them, and we have to shut down everything, and you can't have any social relations and so forth.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. You know, something you mentioned was like you think that the Democrats have a chance at the presidency? I mean, do you really believe that Joe Biden has a chance? You know, even with the current situation against Trump?
It's certainly Trump is more dynamic, but he's still 70 plus years of age. And so they're two old guys going at it. And look, it's the economy, right? It's the economy, stupid, as Bill Clinton said. So if the economy is still struggling, maybe making a comeback, they may vote for anybody who said anybody but Trump kind of attitude, even if it means a defective performer who can't remember where he's at, can't remember his wife's name from time to time. I mean,
he's falling apart. The guy is kind of falling apart.
He's got to be better than what we have right now because Trump blew it. This is Trump's election to lose. It's not that much about Biden. It's about Trump.
It's right. No, it's is there? Do you think there's there's talk of them replacing Biden with somebody else during the at or before the convention? Is that a possibility? Like they can sneak in a somebody a little less.
The only way that can happen is if you don't have a majority of the delegates, and he's going to have the majority as he goes in. So I think I don't believe any of those conspiracy things. That would be such an embarrassment to the Democrats if they kicked out the one who was elected in the primaries.
Right. Well, you never know. So it's. But okay, so to wrap up, you like some of these tech stocks. You're bullish on gold. You like the dollar. In terms of the market, the overall stock market, where do you think the Dow is going to be this time next year?
So I do see a recovery. You have all of this money coming in. You have zero interest rates. So once the economy starts making a comeback, I expect the Dow to move up and maybe it'll get back up to 30,000. But for those who are predicting 40,000 and so forth, the Super Bulls, I don't buy that. I think we're in a period of a little bit of stagnation here, a struggle to make a comeback. And so I'm much more reserved now in my optimism about the American economy and the stock market. It's just going to be very difficult when you have this huge burden now of $3 trillion deficits. $3 trillion deficits.
It's a lot of money.
And when we were piling on deficits with full employment, which is a violation of every economist. I don't know a single economist who favors deficit spending when you have full employment. And that's what we were doing for the last few years. That's a huge burden to just load on our system. I can't help but think we're going to struggle for a while. And so I'm not as optimistic as I used to be, sorry to say.
Okay. But would the innovators, would that be kind of a safe spot to hide out? Like some of these, the innovators you mentioned, like some like the ARK Fund, NVIDIA, Microsoft. Sure.
I mean, the technologies are going to be growing, but doesn't necessarily mean their stock price is going to keep going up.
Okay.
There could be a disconnect between the two. I mean, people are. You look at and see what we've gone through. It's pretty depressing when you realize that we're going to go through a relatively, a crisis that was kind of overblown right from the get-go in terms of number of people actually dying from this compared to in the past, and the fact that we kind of blew this thing way up out of proportion, and we've added on these huge amount of financial burden in order to pay for it. It doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room to just say, it can go back to everything's really nice and we don't need to worry about it. And what's going to happen when the next virus hits? Are we going to shut down the economy again? Are we going to do this every year from now on? Are we going to learn something that maybe we can adopt the Swedish model or something to keep this from happening? Because believe me, the current crisis is not going to be the last. We get these things every few years, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to shut down the economy and close schools and send everybody home. And the other issue is what kind of permanent damage and permanent changes are we seeing in education, for example, in healthcare, in the economy? Are we going to be able to go back to normal, or are we going to try to do everything from home now? See if that works. So there's lots of things. This is Freedom Fest this year. The theme is Catch the Vision, and we're bringing in the experts to talk about what the change. These are dramatic. These are permanent changes in our economy. What is it going to mean to you as a businessman, as an educator, as an investor? You're going to retirement. What does that mean for your retirement? Or can you really expect a booming economy again? Are we going to get 3, 4, 5% growth? You know, in 1983, when we came out of the recession, you know what the growth rate was in the United States in real terms? 8%. Wow. In Reagan in 1983. 8%. We're not even coming close to that.
We haven't had that in a long time.
Coming out of any of these recessions.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, you know, it'll be great, you know, to have everybody show up to Freedom Fest, because this will actually this event will give it a new meaning if people can get to Vegas.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and they'll probably all be wearing masks and stuff. They'll be afraid. I mean, I'm hoping the crisis has ended and people will get back to normal.
It'll give them a reason to celebrate life.
Yeah,
it'll be a celebration of life,
liberty, and property, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely, absolutely. So where do people go to sign up right now?
Yep, so it's freedomfest.com, and the early bird special has been extended, so people only pay $3.99 per person for the event. An additional person is only $2.99. So we've kept the price relatively low considering what has happened, and we're expecting a really big crowd. I think it'll really be fun, but we're going to focus on what has changed and the permanent changes, and what you need to do as a businessman, investor, and a person who wants to succeed in life. What are kids going to do going educate who graduate this year? Are they going to have a job? These are the questions that people are really asking these days, and it's a tough one.
Yeah, and you're going to have some heavy hitters there. So. Definitely, I look forward to getting out there and meeting you in person finally.
Great.
And you know, I'll catch up with you then. So on that note, you know, Mark, I want to thank you.
Thank you.